you've picked up on a lot of new stuff. I think you put out a couple of books and definitely put in some more videos. Did you write a book?
I wrote a book. Um,
Okay.
I feel like I've written a couple of books just because of the amount of writing that I did before I focused on this one little subject. But it needed to be done, and needed to be done immediately because if I didn't do it, someone else was going to do it. Honestly, that's why I released it as fast as I did. And so there's holes like Swiss cheese in this book that
Oh
only
yeah.
only I know about, right? And the only reason I know about them is because my research is ongoing, and
Yeah.
I can't wait like a trapper in the early 1800s in North America. I can't wait for somebody to try to call me out on one of the holes they find in my Swiss cheese because each of them, are the foundations, the setup, the scaffold, the inner scaffolding is all perfectly um, good. There's just a couple of little slips that I've made that I would love to expand upon, and I'm kind of waiting, like a trapper for the right person to step into those and then call me out on them so that I can expand. But go ahead.
That won't be me because you sold me on the whole idea, hook, line, and sinker, basically. So we were talking about the non-existence of Jesus, that he was created as a composite of three characters. So we have Judas the Galilean, John the Baptist, and James the Just. And that to me was very interesting to concept to think about. And you talked about it, and I had already made up my mind before I met you that there was no Jesus per se. That it was, in my mind, it was a masterful creation of by masterminds at deception and so on to create a character that we in modern day currently worship through guilt and yeah, we're worshiping a dead man on a cross for fuck's sakes. Pardon me, I swear a lot.
No, no, no.
But
Please, it's passion. It's a passion for everybody that looks at it. But go ahead.
hmm, yeah, the Catholic Church was inherently evil through the Dark Ages, which is why they call it the Dark Ages. Um, they murdered people, they tortured people with outrageous fucking torture devices, and yeah, they hid behind the cross. And when they were selling, what do you call it when Martin Luther basically said he used the Gutenberg press for the first time and slapped a note on their door? What was it? They're selling tickets to heaven, basically, the Catholic Church. There's a word for it.
Um,
I can't remember what it is,
yeah.
but it's okay. Um, it was proof of the fact that they're cheesemongers. Um, and the ultimate travesty I feel about the Catholic Church is that they're hoarders of wealth. There's gold all around them in St. Peter's Basilica, and underneath in the basement they have a huge library of information that they do not share with anyone in the world, except for those who are chosen or part of their group. And then you got the flip side of the Catholic Church, um, the Black Pope, the IHS, and the Jesuit order, and you call yourself the JesuitSlayer, and that is an immediate appeal for some people. I think you're speaking straight to them basically through your name.
Thank you. It's not something that I wanted to do, but a couple of people that I've dated over time, including my wife now, have been really into Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and that's where it came from. Honestly, I wasn't trying to be all up in their face like that, but I will. I will get up in their face like that, and if I have to, and I basically just want to have a discussion with uh, anyone of the cloth that has the education to feel comfortable having this discussion. And apparently, there is nobody on the other team, meaning the team of Jesus Christ, that's willing to have this discussion. In contrast to my discovery that in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the fisher of men is exactly who Paul and the tax collectors, in a parody almost, that had to become serious later. They had to, it started out as something that was a true slur of the Dead Sea Scrolls community to put this most evil demon in their knowledge, in the Christ position. But that's the tax collectors. That was the stomping the curb stomping that they gave the Jewish genome after they genocided them. And then they raised the remnant, any remnant that was left over from them after the two genocides in 70, with the Second Temple leveling, and then again in 136 under Simon and the Bar Kokhba uprising. A lot of people forget that when they're wondering why all the scriptures showed up in the early part of the second century. It's because it was done out of necessity, because the Romans had just dealt with a second wave of a rebellion that they thought they'd squashed with the Second Temple leveling, but they didn't. This Simon of Bar Kokhba, or whatever his name was, came back with a vengeance in 134, 135, and 136. And when they finally put down those Jews, I mean, there was like 1 million of them that they killed, 700,000 at least. And Rome was done playing around. So some of the ideas that the early Flavian Caesars and Piso tax collectors had come up with, like the Book of Mark, started to look really appealing to them as a way to stop this moving forward. Not just to mitigate it, but to create a preemptive programming for subsequent Gentile and Jewish lineage to make sure that they were starting from a basis of compliance, which is exactly what Jesus Christ is designed to do, is create an arbitrary and sustaining compliance to the three nets of the demon in the Dead Sea Scrolls, who pitches nets of money, bad government subjection wisdom, and bad dietary wisdom, ritual pollution of the temple.
Okay. Basically, um, where we left off was talking about Pythagoras, his fourth philosophy, which has five tenets that you described to me, that stand out. Basically, no tax collecting, no taxes, no government, no eating meat, no sacrifices, and no preaching. Sorry, no worshiping in a house of the Lord made by man. And that all to me sounds pretty damn good, in the grand scheme of things. The biggest hurdle for people to be able to accept all of them is the idea of not eating meat. Um, and what you described to me was that Jesus was the antithesis of Pythagoras. That basically he worshipped in the temple, he did eat meat, he was friends with tax collectors, and yeah, what else? Not only that, he said he was the king of the Jews, and I just want to throw in, it's no surprise to me why the leadership and the Pharisees and so on in the Jewish community in Nazareth or Bethlehem or wherever they were when or Jerusalem. The idea being that they offed him because he went into the temple and uh, beat the snot out of people, basically, sort of turned over the tables, and um, he did a good job at pissing them off. And the other thing is, John the Baptist's head was put on a silver platter, so Herod wasn't too pleased with this kind of behavior. I know it was something that his wife asked him to do, but um, yeah. So it's no surprise to me that Jesus would feel like, he's in danger, they're coming for him, he's next, that kind of thing. And um, just this whole story seems to me to be contrived because for people who say they've been saved by Jesus and so on, and they push that a lot, uh, is that it covers all the bases, right? Like if you're ill, read this part. If you're sad, read this part. If um, your marriage is being broken up, read this part. Like they try to cover every base
Yeah, it was
with
the
the story
original
of
internet.
Jesus.
It was like the original, right?
Right. So
There was
yeah,
there
Jesus
was
is a
there was a search result for everything you needed in the matrix of the book.
right. So basically, I'm of the opinion that he didn't exist. They created him. They created the whole story, and it ties people down, keeps them in order, under order. Uh,
Say that again. Say that again.
Sorry, someone outside just burned it out with their shitty car. um, so they, Jesus basically was the tool that they used to control people. It's a means of control, and up until this very day. I mean, how many people in the world profess themselves to be Christian? This is a couple billion people, and
It's a third. It's a third of people in the world.
um, the other thing I don't like is the it's called I call it the Jesus blackmail, and in essence, you know, if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to hell. You're going to the lake of fire and brimstone.
And if it's
That's like
not
a pretty
true, if it's
heavy.
not true, then you're okay. Then you're also okay. Right. So they that's called Pascal's wager. Like if like if nothing means anything is the other side that you're presented with, then you've lost nothing if you believed in Jesus. But boy, if you're wrong and it really is what Jesus says it is, then boy, you're in a lot of trouble if you were wrong. So you're better off just believing in Jesus and being obedient to Jesus because the worst case is that you were just wrong and at least you just did that. But but on the best case scenario, uh, or however you look at it, that's what Pascal's wager is. It says it's okay if we're wrong because the alternative is so bad that it's better to just be on this side of things. And my God, that is some deep programming, you know, and
Yeah,
especially for a dietary wisdom that doesn't exist that has no dietary wisdom at all. It's like you could eat trash and you would be compliant with Christian dietary wisdom, according to Mark chapter 7.
there's a couple other things. He said, I will not interfere with Herod, or sorry, with the Caesar's laws or whatever. Um, he also said um, something about basically he wouldn't oppose or overturn the old ways or the old laws. Um, and yet, like there's Leviticus, which goes over pretty much anything you can think of in terms of rules, including like if you're gonna make a sacrifice, you gotta put the liver on the altar over here, and you gotta put this and that over there. And um, we don't sacrifice things anymore, and or maybe some do, and it's probably more black magic and evil rituals, um, like the Khazarians who do child sacrifices and so on. But um, I think that we cherry pick the rules, and yeah, it's it seems to be a big fat fucking joke to me.
Well, it keeps getting deeper. You know, the joke, you can keep getting closer to the truth as you peel back the layers of joke. One of the layers of joke is the kosher diet. The Jews' kosher diet did not match up at all with what was going on in their highest consciousness as what was represented in the book of Daniel. In post temple, the first temple leveling, around 300, 400, 300 BC, a couple hundred thousand or a couple hundred years to 300 years after the existence of this supposed Daniel character who was a vegan, a Pythagorean dietary person.
Okay.
We see these kosher laws show up, which require payment to a priest for blessing the meat so it becomes kosher. And you could get into like the packaging if you want to, so that it's clean. But like the point is that like they take control over a new form of government over food, which is the
Mhm.
kosher thing. And that was what the temple was turned into after it was destroyed the first time in 587 BC was a big meat market with channels of
Huh.
blood running out of it and priests making money off of the early form of taxation, which was taking money to bless the meat to make it okay for consumption. But when you look from my perspective now as 9 years vegan and realizing that what's being hidden by all this is the Pythagorean diet and the diet of Daniel and Judas the Galilean and his brother James the Just, what's the takeaway from what's been pitched to us? It looks like the Babylonians and the Persians found great reward in converting all populations to meat eating, whether they were doing it through strict kosher methodology or whether they were just doing it. It turns out that it's really good for government in general to have people eating flesh. And apparently we're not supposed to do that unless it's a post-apocalyptic situation. And that's how we survive ice ages. But when things are good, if we're diving face first into the carcasses, we're supporting a bacterial colony in good times that we wouldn't be supporting in the hard times if we were only doing it in the hard times. So because we're partying like it's 1999, eating blood and ritual and non-ritual animal sacrifice, we're inviting in a host of microbial colonization into the body, which eats us alive. And for some reason, our modern medical hospitalers don't have a way of detecting or telling us that it's the flesh consumption that's causing the undetectable microbial collateral damage. And
Mhm.
my research has turned up that they're not stupid, that they're not that the bad guys, the visiting team, the people that thought of all this, it's not that they're not paying attention. This is exactly the outcome that they were hoping for and that they've been using for over 2,000 years to subject humans to government rule, taxation, basically corralling us and making us desire the continuance of being corralled by people that we should see as lesser than us, but we elect as greater than us. And that
Mhm.
whole mind, um, you know, that whole convincing that we're not good enough and that they need to do this for us is part of an early MK Ultra design that was practiced by the black magicians that gave us the New Testament.
There we go. Yeah, I have a lot to say about all that. Basically, well, you talk about the microbial attack against the human body, basically by consuming meat, we're killing ourselves slowly, but we're doing it. It's by their design. Um, it's in tune with the whole eugenics agenda, where they want to get rid of people. They're always trying to kill people. And these fucking bad guys, all they want to do, there's chemtrails in the air, dumping aluminum, strontium, and barium on us. There's a GMO. There's microwave towers all over the place with 5G that doesn't exist. There's 4G. The 5G is just a bullshit story. You got all kinds of contamination of the food supply, the air, and the food we eat, and it's killing us. And the vaccines, my God, you got the exponential increase of autism in children over the last 50 years. They can track it. They can tell you it's going up every year, and it's now like 1 in 50 or 1 in 20 kids gets autism. It's
I'm sure we all are at some level of it. I think ADD was like autism.
okay. Yeah, I have it.
Right.
And yeah, the whole Rockefeller School of Medicine doctrine, where they just kiboshed holistic medicine and introduced petroleum-based chemical medicine, which started off really shitty and got better over the years, but it's still a situation where you get treated, you don't get cured, and that's their model. They want to keep you sick so that they can milk you for everything,
Yeah.
and they want people dead, they want people sick, they want people miserable, and yeah,
That's called the net of the ritual pollution of the net of ritual pollution of the temple. And a lot of people that don't know much about this stuff, when they first hear about this net of the demon Belial, they think that it's pollution of the temple is like throwing a beer can in church, and they don't understand that the temple is the body, and
right.
and and they're talking about throwing rotting carcasses in your hole, and then
Mm,
wondering why bad things come out, why bad fruit emerges on the tree, because we're ritually polluting the temple with blood and filth and animal sacrifice. Um, but the the only way out of this is to change the human consciousness. And apparently, our human consciousness is so base level controlled by our gut bacteria that even the Pythagoreans knew 2,600 years ago that the only way out of this papal bag, is what I call it, is to start with mitigating their biological warfare, something that they discovered 2,600 years ago under Babylon and that was passed on to the Romans, that the tax collectors continued with, which is flesh consumption, is what keeps them in power. If they can keep us that stupid, then they're going to have a need for us. We're going to have a need for them. Hold on for a second.
right. Okay. Well, while you're gone, I'll just spout off something that you can check out later. What I want to say is they're killing us softly. They're killing us. Uh, they're soft killing us. They're also hard killing us, culling us. Oh fuck. Um, yeah, basically, I'm distracted now. ADD kicking in. I wanted to talk about the Khazarians, who have basically taken over the world. Basically, the Khazarians are people that lived in 300 AD till about 1050 AD. They the original king, or early on back in 300 AD, worshipped Baal, and that may be connected to Belial. I don't know.
Well, rightly
Um,
so, but that was the Ugaritic um, culture. But long before any of these other religions existed, Baal was the most important god to respect. So that made a lot of sense. But for the same reason that Yahweh couldn't stand Baal, those people couldn't be allowed to continue to exist under the papacy. But go ahead.
just so Khazarians were cock worshippers. They built their homes that looked like giant cocks. They carved cocks in the rock. There's pictures uh, of of this all lined up basically. But no, that's just a side note. These people worship Baal, and they manufactured this idea that I don't. Uh, I believe there are demons, okay, but that's another story. What I'm trying to say is, um, they were convinced that bloodletting a child or an infant and then eating the heart was what Baal required for his favor. And Baal promised them the world and all the riches. And we're at a point where um, every central bank in the world is owned by the Khazarian mafia. And there are only three countries in the world that don't have a central bank, which were labeled the axis of evil by George Bush, which are Cuba, North Korea, and Iran. And yeah, basically it all ties together. Um, as a side note, also, I don't know if your listeners know this, but George Bush's grandfather was Aleister Crowley, and his other grandfather, Prescott Bush, financed Hitler during the war and was tried with war crimes.
Yeah, Union
Uh,
Bank.
it's it's hilarious how people don't know this shit. I mean, how did he ever get in power? It's like, but then you come to realize that the whole system is rigged, elections don't work, and capitalism and representative democracy have been usurped by evil, and the whole system is a fucking joke. And there's another joke.
Well, I agree with everything you said, but I think that there's another layer that needs to be penetrated here, which would have been more obvious 500 years ago before the Society of Jesus showed up and became experts at making sure we don't know this anymore. But before they showed up, everyone knew that our common enemy as a species and as a soul, having a temporary educational experience on this planet, was the Church of Christ, not the Jews. And it turns out that inventing the Jews as the enemy is their smokescreen. That's how the octopus, that's the ink it blows, is the fake Jew. And
They're the scapegoats
the perpetual,
every time.
there's no reason, they're never going to change. It's so old, it's so overplayed. They've been doing it since the beginning. It's the reason that what's his name from Lethal Weapon? Uh,
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson said that, I couldn't help myself when I was making The Passion. Of course, it seems anti-Jewish because that's how the text reads. Well, I mean, from the beginning, it was designed as a Roman um, boot on the face of the people they just genocided, and making sure that they never rose from those ashes again, by making
Mm-hmm.
sure that they were the bad guy that the foundation of the good guy was built upon. And so, but what we find, and what you helped me realize, is that in numerology, Christ, originally in the first people that really showed a significant caring about numerology were the Greeks. Now it existed in Hebrew too, when we get into that, but in Christ in Greek Christology, which is where it started, didn't start Christology didn't start in Hebrew, right? Um, Greek Christology, which was numerology, they at that time when Christos was actually a thing, there was no
Mm-hmm.
Belial. The prince of demons was Beliar. His name was spelled the same, but ended in an R, which in the Greek
Okay.
alphabet looks like Rho, which is P. It's the P shape. And so when people were talking about Beliar, the prince of demons, if they all they had to do was hold that up to their Greek alphabet and it added up to 148. And if they held up Christos to their Greek alphabet, then they got 1480.
Okay.
Now,
Huh.
that may seem like not a big deal, right? But
There's no such thing as coincidence, man.
right, but in this particular instance, the Prince of Demons and Christ seem to be one seems to be a tenfold which is biblical as hell, all get out. A tenfold mirroring and projection of the seed of another, which was the prince of demons. And once this thing starts to expose itself numerologically, it takes on a whole different ball game than what I wrote my book about. Because honestly, I discovered this after I wrote my book. This is not in my book. I might
Okay.
have to, make a new copy, and I can do a new copy every 90 days for the print that's out. But
Okay.
I don't know if I want to make this something new that I do later or try to retroactively insert it into copies moving forward. But it's significant, and you were one of the people that helped me reach this point, realizing the importance of numerology. Um, I can't believe I made this discovery. I mean, how uh, people laugh at it, but how could it make this match numerologically,
What are the chances, right? Like it's astronomical actually to be able to come across two ideas that correlate in terms of tenfold. It's interesting for sure. It's something you can it's a discovery and it's hidden. It's occulted.
It really makes me want to look into the numerological basis for 1, 4, and 8 and a little bit more deeply because there's something to that. There's something really significant to that. Just like, the highest high that any of the followers of Christ could hope for is to be one of the 144,000 that are invited to be with him for 1,000 years on earth. What's with the 144, right? Um,
Right.
that's something that's
It
weird.
adds to nine. There's so many things in the
But it's
Bible that
it,
add to nine.
it's also a Fibonacci number, which
Oh
is,
shit.
yeah, it's really rare that something like that would line up with a Fibonacci number, but it is. And
Okay.
so it just it just goes on and on. And if we add the number nine to that Fibonacci number, we get 153, which is the soul trap,
Right.
right? That becomes this.
153 is a is connected. How was it 153 or 249? Anyway, there's something called word form in numerology. I don't want to distract you. Go ahead.
No, but I'm just, you got me thinking about all that stuff, and so I'm really into it now. A lot of people don't know what the number 216 is, but it's six cubed, six times six times six. And a lot of the Christians promote the number 108 as if it's something important. But the
That's my
108,
birth date.
yeah, 108, as important as that is in numerology, is one half of the 216 whole.
Okay.
And the Prince of Demons always presents himself as two angels. He's
Hmm.
split into two halves of a whole. And so he does that to lend credibility to himself. So he's not just, himself, but he's another as well, making,
Okay.
in agreement with this. But he presents himself as two contrasting halves of one whole, which is what Paul's talking about in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14, when he says, don't you know the adversary always poses as an angel of light? Um, but
Huh.
a few chapters earlier, he's like, what harmony is there between Christ and Belial? And he's basically speaking yin and yang language to us, describing
Okay.
two halves of a whole, like blue blood and red blood pumping through a heart, and
Hmm.
and trying to describe them as if they're competing enemies, which is incongruent with all esoteric knowledge about those types of things. And typically,
Okay.
when we're being presented with a false dichotomy like that, it's a shell game. It's a trap. And in this case, it also turns out to be that because God is nowhere in the story. The God of love and free will and the creator of souls which the
Wait till you get to Revelations. God's a pretty nasty motherfucker, man. Holy shit.
well,
Um,
that's not the God that that I was just referring to as the creator of souls. So
okay.
the book of Revelations tends to get the listener ready for a massive blowback of
Mm.
retribution that leaves everybody wasted, right?
Yeah,
And and and,
right.
and that's a government propaganda tool that has been used for every flag that's gone up and burned down to the ground and then had a phoenix rise from the ashes again. And that phoenix
Okay.
always presents itself as two heads, right? So that's why you see the double-headed phoenix in these families on their crests, because they
Almost every country in Europe had a double-headed, and then after a time they changed their flag. But it's very common, and you see it on the House of Rothschild's coat of arms. And these are the ultimate bad guys.
right. So the what I'm saying is that these guys are that are running the world today didn't level their own temple, right?
Hmm.
They didn't level the
They
first
weren't.
temple. They
They
didn't
weren't
level.
even. Sorry, they weren't even Jews. They were. They're fucking Khazarians, man.
Right. So
They're
like
imposter Jews.
what people have to remember is that the people that we've like to warmly think of as that don't exist anymore. And what we have in their place is a construct of the victor of that battle, the Romans. And what we have in the place of the authentic version don't know their ass from the hole in the ground as far as what's really going on or who invented their version of events, which is somewhat based in some truth, but there's a lot of it that's been twisted for
Mhm.
to be in agreement with government oversight, rule, and taxation and monetization. Because the
Okay.
original Jews were anti-usury, and what we were left with is the parable of talents by Jesus Christ, which is pro-usury, pro-banking, pro-interest, pro-money.
Mm.
And these are all the nets of the demon Belial in Jewish
Okay.
literature. So the Romans were pretty dark and seedy in that they turned their false Messiah into the most important antagonist the Jews ever knew, which was the demon Belial.
Mm.
And 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 unfortunately, there's no authentic Jew left to catch what happened. The level of the effort that we have to make to go back through all of this and back into it is too much to ask of the common person. But and there's no real authentic um, Semite that knew about the Dead Sea Scrolls, Prince of Demons, around to raise the alarm that that's what's going on with the invention of Christ. They killed that many of
Okay.
them where any remnant it bled into what became a Christianized society or a Muslim society, and so they're not around to raise the alarm anymore.
Mm. So you're educating me about Belial. I didn't know anything about um, this character, this evil demon. Um, but it's certainly interesting to advance my knowledge and understanding of it. Um, yeah, basically, it was the president of Egypt said that the Jews left black and they came back white. And these so-called Jews in what's called the state of Israel, which is really Palestine, which was formerly Judea, um, have 97% of them have Khazarian blood. They have no blood ties to being Hebrew, from being from the land, none of that. They're complete and utter and total imposters.
And the Palestinians actually do have that blood, which is really
They're the Semites.
yeah.
They're the Semites, and some of them converted to Islam over the last 2,000 years. And
That was a
yeah,
Roman effort to further befuddle our consciousness and hide the roots of what they built in its place.
So we're kind of aligned in terms of like the root basics, and I stand to gain more understanding about it. Um, I don't read books. I read internet stuff. I read the computer, but I don't read books, which is kind of a failing on my part. Could have figured a lot of stuff out in my life if I've actually read a lot more books, but um, I figured out everything I knew on my own. I basically so there's this concept of waking up, and waking up is like realizing that everybody around you is dead asleep. They're sheep of the flock, the so-called flock of Jesus, so to speak, and they're running around chasing each other, following each other, uh, not really doing their homework or digging deep or asking deeper questions. Um, and they're basically lost, and they're being led by the nose down the primrose path to destruction. And we're at the razor's edge at this point between a monumental awakening in the entire planet where people come alive. The American giant who's been sleeping stands up, and we conquer our enemies, basically these manipulators and liars and deceivers. Or we're at the point of digital IDs, which leads to CBDCs, which is central bank digital currency, and then a social credit score system, which will enslave us eternally. We will be so fucked that there will be no dissenting ever. It's basically an incarnation of George Orwell's book, 1984. We're living it right now. It's actually happening. England just adopted digital currency, digital IDs. Um, this is a fucking nightmare. We are living in the most scary, worst, but most exciting, crazy times ever.
And then my book, Christ is Belial, is about how to break that spell. It means as much to the unbeliever as it does the believer, and you won't understand it, you won't believe it until you've read it. But you can't undo this thing until you see it. But the natural response, the natural responsibility of the soul when it sees the nets that I'm going to outline in my book, and that I try to outline in all these interviews, is that you see them. And as soon as you see them, you can't unsee them.
Yeah.
And your reaction to them isn't going to be the same as it was with your previous programming, because I'm teaching you that these are the three nets that were spoken of in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the which were the most important literature to the crucified person for sure. The three nets of the demon Belial. And if people knew that they were worshiping a false idol of the demon Belial instead of the actual crucified person's teachings, then we could have a wholesale change almost overnight, because a third of the world's population are under this spell.
Mhm.
And those that aren't under the spell are under the monetary system that was created by the people that are under the spell. So
Okay.
it, the monetary system itself is part of the problem. The minute you eliminate it, people start trading again. They start having to deal with each other again. They start liking each other again. There
Yeah.
stops being the form of debt that we associate with money. I mean, if somebody comes out on the lower end of a trade, then it's understood that they need to come up a little better next time, um, because there's no way to handle change in a situation like that, loose change, right? So,
Mhm.
the kind of accounting that
Oh,
happens is different. Go ahead.
I got an idea. I came up with this a long time ago. Um, I went manic in 2003, and I had a whole spirit journey, and I'm not going to get into it too much, except to say that I took a $10 bill and I waved at people and I said, "Look, you can't eat your money." And I folded it up and I put it in my mouth and I swallowed it. The whole point of that was to exercise that um, money should be something that you can create naturally, like a seed, a nut, a mushroom, whatever. Basically,
Yeah.
you can use that as money. And the more people tend to their garden, the richer they'll be. And there will be an abundance. And you can bring your seeds to a seed bank. It's just an idea I had,
No, I mean
and
your
I'm with
idea
you.
was that was one that was the way that things worked for 99% of human history until the last
Oh yeah.
2,600 years,
Okay.
right? I mean, money is what screwed us all up and made us think that like getting everything down to the penny is, and then if somebody's over, they're in debt, and like
Mm,
all that is just where we went wrong. The monetization of human consciousness allowed for the monopolization of human sovereignty. And so, like minute you eliminate the tool of money, then what you end up with is a situation that doesn't require the tool of money for a reason. There's a reason that the
okay.
money doesn't exist. There's a reason no other species uses it, and there's a reason why we shouldn't be using it. It makes us. The outcome is like that of a tourist. You're always getting your ass handed to you by the locals.
Hmm.
You never look like you're dressed for the environment. You're
Hmm.
out of place, and you wonder where all your money went. That's what a tourist
Hmm.
experiences, right? And like not a local. And all the animals and species on and all of the material realm look like locals compared to us who look like tourists everywhere we go because of money. If we eliminated it, then we'd have to adapt to something that was a lot better for us. And we can feel that now that the money is starting to put us in a cage. And that's what it was
Hmm.
originally designed to do, was put us in a cage. I'm shocked that they let it take this long. The only reason that it has taken this long is because of our will to fight back has put them in a chess game that led to the American Constitution versus the deep state, which helped build the American Constitution. It's that deep,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
That like we've been hedging ourselves in these this war for human sovereignty to we entered to the point where we entered into an agreement with Freemasons called the American Constitution, which now might be taken away by the very same enterprise that helped us arrange that.
Hmm.
That's how deep it is, right? And the only reason that we're even having a debate about it is because we have our guns. And the minute we give up that, we're as fucked as Britain and Canada.
It's
And
over.
yeah.
The only thing that's standing between them just taking over wholesale and just what rolling right over everybody in the world is Americans with guns. And you nailed it. You nailed it too. You nailed it.
And they're about to scare us out of our guns with by shooting up our schools with kids that they raised um, with all kinds of genetic and biological and psychological askew, that they
Mm,
created, splitting techniques they created to create these kids that are programmable into doing these heinous crimes and never leaving a fingerprint to the fact that the same deep state did that did it in Great Britain to take their guns. They're using the same
mm,
method of operation here, and we're not picking up on the pattern because we're fluoridated, we're poisoned.
mm. Yeah.
We don't pick up on patterns well anymore, or we would have had another revolution a long time ago.
It's common sense that went out the window, and yeah, critical thinking, and I may have ADHD, but I can critical think. Um, I can have an highly intellectual conversation with you or other people,
Yeah.
and I can lay the beats to the fucking system that we live in. And I stand, I'm not on a soapbox. I'm not like preaching. I'm just speaking truth. You talk to people about the truth, it resounds and it carries on. And sometimes some words that ring so true spread across the world like fucking wildfires. And yeah, what we've talked about is really important stuff. And I think, you know, maybe we should cut it off here because it's a good message that we put out
Okay.
talking about um, what we did, basically. And
Well,
yeah,
well, Richard, do you want to plug anything that you've done before we get off?
I created a language. It's called Jam language. And it is, yeah, something about three-dimensional thinking, spatial thinking, uh, walking around in terms of knowledge in three-dimensional space like we live in 3D, but we think in two dimensions. And so the website is jamlanguage.ca, and it's a pretty fucking cool website, actually. It's almost complete. The actual language, I built the tools for creating messages in three dimensions. Every word is a number, is a coordinate in space. And so it fits in a master cube that's 36 by 36 by 36. You were talking about six earlier. Um, the permutations of six, sorry, 36, so one plus two plus three all the way to 36 is 666. I just wanted to throw that in there.
What do you mean?
Yeah, that's what do I mean? So one plus two plus three all the way to plus 35 plus 36 equals 666. So it's just an interesting fact. The other thing is nine is completion in the decimal system, the Pythagorean numerology system, I should say. It's base nine. You don't include the zero. Um, and what I was going to say about that was 666 divided by 74 is nine. So uh, yeah, it's divisible by nine. So I don't know. That's pretty much it. I mean, I do other stuff. I was working on a project called the World Provisional Government, a temporary uh, in-between layer where people get to vote on every issue that matters to them, whether it's local, regional, or global. Um, I mean, if it doesn't matter to you, don't vote on it. But if it does, you have a say, and it's every day. People can vote on any issue they want to. They only get one vote per issue, and this replaces, in a sense, representative democracy, where and what it does is it gives the real status quo, not what they tell us, not what's the media telling you, not what the government's telling you. People get to know what people really think about issues, and that being a way to force the hand of governments to change their way of being. But everything's fucking corrupt. The court systems, the governments, the education system, all of it, everything's corrupt. This world is in so much fucking trouble.
Well, I'd like to simplify why that is and just say it's money. And that if you eliminated that, then you would eliminate all of the bullshit that is allowed to exist because of it. And there's a lot of things that we know immediately would go away if there was no money and people were just exchanging things that they grew and did. But boy, that would be a beautiful world again, wouldn't it? And that's the way it
Yeah,
was intended.
we're on the same page, man. I really like it. I enjoy talking to you about this stuff. Thanks a lot.
You too. All right, well, we'll talk again. Good to see you, Richard.
All right, take care.
All right, bye-bye.